Have you ever wondered how much pain a child can carry before her heart? Learn strength instead of fear? What if survival was not a choice, but a daily responsibility placed on small hands far too early? This is not just a sad story. This is a story about a very poor girl, an ill mother, and a lesson that teaches us why trust must be earned, not given, and why kindness should never make you weak. Once upon a time, in a noisy city where millions walked past without seeing each other, there lived a very poor young girl. She was still in her early teenage years, yet her eyes carried the weight of someone much older. Her home was a single dark room hidden behind tall buildings, where sunlight barely entered and hope struggled to breathe. On the floor lay a thin mattress, and on it rested her mother, weak, ill, and slowly fading. There was no father, no relatives, no help waiting at the door. Every morning, the girl woke up not to dreams, but to responsibility. Her life was simple and cruel. If she did not earn, they did not eat. While other children walked to school holding books, she walked to the streets holding items to sell. Sometimes it was flowers, sometimes handmade crafts, sometimes small fruits she bought with borrowed coins. The streets were loud, unforgiving, and full of strangers. People hurried past her as if she did not exist. Some avoided eye contact. Some looked at her with pity. A few smiled, but rarely stopped. The sun burned her skin during the day, and the cold punished her at night. Still, she stood there, because every coin meant medicine for her mother, and one more night without hunger. There were days when she sold almost nothing. Days when her stomach growled louder than the traffic around her. Yet she always saved the best food for her mother. Pretending she had already eaten, she learned to lie not to deceive, but to protect. At night, she sat beside her mother, gently wiping her forehead, listening to her breathing, silently praying for strength. She did not cry loudly. Poverty had taught her early that tears do not change reality, but effort sometimes does. As time passed, people noticed her presence on the streets. Some approached her with kindness in their voices and smiles on their faces. They offered help, promising better places to sell, safer spots, or higher profits. The girl, young and desperate, believed them. Trust felt natural when you are tired and alone, but soon she realized the truth. These people took her money, used her work, and disappeared when she needed them most. Kind words turned into empty promises. Each betrayal felt sharper than hunger. She learned that not every hand reaching out is meant to help. Some are meant to take. One night, she returned home with almost nothing. The medicine was incomplete. Her mother's pain grew worse. Sitting beside her, the girl counted the few remaining coins again and again, hoping the number would change. That night, she cried silently, pressing her face into her knees so her mother would not hear. She blamed herself for trusting too easily, for believing again. In that darkness, a hard truth settled in her heart. Pain repeats itself only when lessons are ignored. If this story is touching your heart, you subscribe to English Story Academy channel for emotional, meaningful, and powerful stories that stay with you long after they end. The next morning, she stood on the same street, but she was not the same girl. She still smiled, but she watched carefully. She listened more than she spoke. She learned to say no. She learned that survival requires not just effort, but awareness. When people returned with sweet words, she stepped away. Poverty had taught her how to work. Betrayal taught her how to protect herself. She promised herself something powerful. No matter how kind she stayed, she would never allow the same people to hurt her twice. Her mother noticed the change. Even in illness, a mother sees everything. One evening, holding her daughter's hand, she whispered words the girl never forgot. Being good is not the same as being weak. Those words became a shield. The girl realized that strength is not loud. It is careful, patient, and firm. She understood that love does not mean sacrificing your dignity. Life did not suddenly become easy. Rain ruined her goods. Cold days emptied the streets. There were moments when she thought of giving up, but each time she looked at her mother and stood again. Even when life bit her deeply, she refused to bleed from the same wound twice. She adapted, learned, and endured. Over time, people began to respect her, not because she begged, but because she stood firm. Shopkeepers trusted her honesty. Customers remembered her determination. Slowly, her earnings improved. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily. She learned that real progress is quiet and slow, but powerful. One day, a woman noticed her consistency and offered her honest work. It was not pity, it was opportunity. The girl accepted carefully, working harder than ever. She saved every coin, planned every step, and protected her future. For the first time, hope felt real, not fragile. Even as life improved, she never forgot the streets that shaped her. She remembered hunger, betrayal, and endurance. She understood now that some people come to help, and some come to test you. Wisdom is knowing the difference and acting on it. Years later, she stood stronger, Not because life became kind, but because she became wise. Her mother was safe. Their home was warmer. Her heart was guarded but kind. She had learned the lesson most never learn. Forgive if you must, but never invite the same pain back into your life. Moral of the story: kindness should never cost you your safety. Trust carefully, because some lessons hurt only when repeated. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this: kindness is a beautiful strength, but it should never require you to bleed in silence. Many of us are taught to be good, patient, and forgiving, but no one teaches us when to step back. Life will place people in your path who speak softly, smile warmly, and promise help when you are tired and vulnerable. Some of them mean well, but some of them only recognize opportunity when they see your weakness. This story is not telling you to become cold or cruel. It is telling you to become aware. Being kind does not mean being blind. Caring does not mean allowing yourself to be used. You are allowed to protect your heart, your effort, and your future, especially after someone has already shown you who they truly are. And remember this: pain becomes a lesson only when you refuse to repeat it. Everyone gets hurt. That is part of being human. But not everyone learns. Strength is not about never trusting again. It is about trusting wisely. Growth is not about hardening your heart. It is about setting boundaries that keep your soul safe. If someone has already broken your trust, taken advantage of your kindness, or disappeared when you needed them most, that was the lesson. Do not turn that lesson into a lifelong wound by reopening it again and again. Forgive if it helps you heal, but never invite the same pain back into your life. Your story, like hers, is not defined by how much you suffer, but by how wisely you rise after suffering. You subscribe to English Story Academy channel for emotional, inspiring, and unforgettable stories that change how you see life.